When my wife said she needed time to find herself, I trusted her. We'd built a life together, dreams, memories, a home. I gave her the space she asked for, believing love would carry us through. But late one night, a gut feeling pulled me to her guest house. That's when I saw it. A second car in the driveway, a shadow through the window, and the man I thought was just our friendly neighbor. Everything I believed shattered in seconds. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I made a plan, because sometimes the real betrayal isn't loud, it's quiet.
When she said she needed time to find herself, I didn't question it. I wanted to be the man who understood, the man who didn't panic. We were married after all, built a life brick by brick, year by year. I figured a rough patch was normal. People needed space sometimes. It didn't mean they stopped loving you. The night she told me, she was already packed. 2 suitcases by the door, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She kissed my cheek, whispered, "I just need a little time," and promised she wasn't going far, just staying at a friend's guest house across town, still close, still reachable. I told her to take whatever time she needed, told her I'd be here when she was ready. I meant it. For the first few days, it almost felt normal. We texted, short check-ins. She liked a few of my posts on Facebook, sent a picture of the coffee shop she found near her temporary place. "Thinking of you," she wrote. I smiled like an idiot at my phone, thinking maybe we were stronger than this rough spot, that maybe we were the kind of couple who came out the other side better. But little things started piling up. Calls went unanswered, messages sat unread, plans to meet for lunch got postponed. She said she was busy with work, sorting out her feelings, trying to journal and meditate. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. I even defended her to my friends, to my family. "She's just overwhelmed," I said. "She needs breathing room." I said it enough that I almost convinced myself it was true. The nights were the worst. The bed felt bigger without her, emptier. I'd find myself rolling over at 2 a.m., reaching for someone who wasn't there. Her pillow stayed cold no matter how much I clutched it. I hated how much I missed her, hated how stupidly loyal I still felt. 2 weeks in, a buddy of mine asked if I had checked on where exactly she was staying. I laughed it off. "She's not that kind of person," I said. "She's just figuring stuff out." But something settled in my gut that night. Heavy. Ugly. I drove past the guest house the next evening, told myself it was just to see if her car was there, just to feel close to her. Her car was there, parked neatly in the driveway. But there was another car too, a truck. One I recognized immediately. It belonged to Mark, our neighbor. The guy who always volunteered to help when something needed fixing. The guy who laughed a little too loudly at her jokes. I sat there for a long time, engine idling, lights off. I wanted to believe there was some innocent reason for it. I really did. But then I saw it. A silhouette in the window. 2 figures. Too close. Too familiar. And suddenly, everything made sense. I don't know why it shocked me so much when I found out exactly where she had moved. 5 minutes away. 5 minutes from the home we built together. 5 minutes from the life she said she needed space from. Not across town, not even across the city. 5 minutes. The so-called friend's guest house belonged to Mark's sister. At least that's what she told me when she packed her bags and gave me her speech about self-discovery. I didn't question it then. She rattled off the address so casually, like it was just a temporary arrangement. A soft place to land while she sorted through her confusion. But now, sitting there in my truck, staring at her car parked beside his, the truth started sinking in. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a woman finding herself. This was a woman who had already made a choice. She just hadn't told me yet. I didn't go up to the door, didn't bang on the window or yell into the night. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, feeling something in my chest slowly crack open. It wasn't anger yet. Not quite. It was something heavier, something colder. I went home and sat on our porch, the same one we used to decorate with pumpkins in October and lights at Christmas. I stared at the front door, at the windows, at the life we built. I thought about how she could walk away from all of it so easily, how she could slip into someone else's arms without even giving me the decency of the truth. She moved 5 minutes away so she could still control the story, still pop by if she needed something, still wear the mask of a struggling wife working on herself. 5 minutes meant she could check on the house she abandoned without really committing to leaving it. It meant she could have it both ways for a while longer, until she figured out how much of me she actually needed. I realized then that she didn't want to find herself. She already had. She found herself exactly where she wanted to be, wrapped up in someone else's life, someone else's arms. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. Not because she had chosen someone else, but because she lied. Because she didn't even have the guts to say it out loud. She wanted to slip away quietly, rewrite the story, make herself the hero in her own mind. I went inside and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty space beside me. Still smelled faintly like her shampoo. Still looked like she might come back any minute, laughing and apologizing for taking so long to figure things out. But she wasn't coming back. Not really. She had moved on without ever leaving town. And for the first time, I realized maybe I needed to start moving too. Not toward her. Away, far, far away from the woman who left 5 minutes at a time. I told myself space was what she needed, that it was what any loving husband would give. So I stayed quiet. I stayed patient. I stayed loyal to a woman who was no longer loyal to me. At first I made excuses for her. When friends asked where she was, I said she was decompressing, sorting herself out, taking a little time to breathe. I said it like it was normal, like it was healthy, like it didn't tear me apart every time I unlocked the front door and remembered I was coming home alone. I kept our routine going, mowed the lawn, took out the trash, paid the bills. Like, if I just kept the machinery of our life humming along, she'd realize what we had was worth coming back to. Like if I kept the house exactly the same, she'd walk in one day and remember who we were. I even started cooking dinner for two, every night, setting her plate across from mine, telling myself she might drop by, that she might be hungry, that she might miss me. The food got cold every night. Eventually, I stopped setting her plate out, but for a while it made me feel like I wasn't completely alone. She would text sometimes. Nothing deep, nothing messy. Hope you're having a good day. Thinking of you. We'll figure this out. Messages designed to soothe just enough without saying anything real. Words that sounded like love if you didn't look too closely. I wanted to believe them. God, I wanted to believe them. Love does that to you. Makes you blind to what's right in front of you. Makes you grateful for crumbs when you used to have the whole feast. I gave her space because I thought that's what strong couples did. I thought I was showing her I trusted her, that I was giving her a safe place to come back to. I thought patience would fix what was broken. But the space I gave her didn't bring her closer. It gave her room to build a whole new life without me. Every time she didn't call, I made excuses. Every time she canceled plans, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Every time that sick feeling twisted in my gut, I pushed it down and said, love is patient. But love isn't supposed to feel like waiting for someone to decide if you're enough. It isn't supposed to feel like sleeping with one side of the bed untouched, cold and empty for weeks on end. The worst part wasn't that she was gone. The worst part was that she made me feel like waiting was the right thing to do. Like standing still while she ran away was somehow proof that I deserved her. I didn't know it yet, but the more space I gave her, the further away she drifted, until there was nothing left to wait for at all. The first few times I called, she answered on the second ring. Her voice was soft, apologetic, full of promises about how she just needed a little more time. By the third week, it was voicemail more often than not. By the fourth, even the voicemails started sounding different, rushed, distracted, like she had one foot out the door even in her words. The visits dried up next. At first, she'd swing by to pick up a few things she forgot, a jacket, a pair of boots, her favorite coffee mug. Each time she stayed a little less. A hug at the door became away from the car. I can't stay long. I have plans, she said once, glancing at her phone like there was somewhere more important she needed to be. The first time she said it, I thought maybe she was really busy. The third time, I stopped pretending. She started weaving new excuses every time I asked to see her. Work was busy. She was helping a friend through a breakup.
She needed a weekend alone to reset. The lies weren't even convincing anymore, and the louder the excuses got, the clearer the silence between us became. I told myself not to push, not to seem needy, not to scare her away by asking for too much too soon. So instead, I sat on my hands, swallowed my questions, and told myself, give her more space. Maybe if I was patient enough, understanding enough, she'd see what she was throwing away. But deep down, something inside me was already breaking apart. Something raw and aching that knew the truth before I had the courage to say it out loud. She wasn't coming back. Not really. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was somewhere else, with someone else, building a life that no longer had room for me. I started noticing the little changes too. Her voice, when she did call, lighter, brighter, like a weight had lifted. Her posts on social media, new places, new friends, always just out of frame, always busy living her best life. Her laugh, when I heard it, that rare, accidental laugh over the phone. It didn't sound like it belonged to me anymore. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes it drips in, slow and steady, drop by drop, until you're drowning and you didn't even realize you were standing in the flood. The last time I called her, she didn't pick up, didn't call back, didn't even text an excuse. And sitting there with the phone dead in my hand, I realized I wasn't waiting for answers anymore. I was just waiting for the truth to finish tearing through what little hope I had left. I told myself I wasn't checking up on her, that I was just taking the long way home, that it was coincidence my truck ended up on her side of town, idling 2 houses down from the guest house she called her safe space. It was late, past midnight. The street was quiet, only a few porch lights on, the kind of stillness that feels heavier than silence. Her car was parked in its usual spot by the curb. Same dent in the fender she never got fixed, same dream catcher dangling from the rearview mirror. But there was another car too, a dark grey pickup, bigger than hers, parked half up on the sidewalk like someone who didn't plan to stay long. Except he had. I sat there, hands clenching the steering wheel, staring through the windshield. Lights were on inside the guest house. Shadows moved behind the curtains. 2 figures. Too close. Too familiar. I told myself it could be nothing. A friend. A family member. Someone dropping off groceries. Someone helping fix a leaky pipe. But even as I thought it, I knew better. You know when you're being replaced. Not because someone tells you, because something inside you stops being able to deny it. The longer I sat there, the harder it became to breathe. My chest felt tight, like the air was too thick to swallow. I thought about all the excuses she gave, all the blurred words and quick goodbyes, all the promises that she'd just needed a little time. It wasn't time she needed, it was an exit, and she had already found the man who would catch her on the other side of it. I should have driven away, should have spared myself what I knew was about to happen. But something rooted me to the spot. A few minutes later, the front door opened. I watched her step outside, barefoot, wearing the old hoodie I gave her our second Christmas together, the one she used to wear when she missed me, the one she said smelled like home. She wasn't alone. He followed her out, grabbing her by the waist, pulling her close. Her laugh floated down the street, soft and easy, the same laugh she used to save for me. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Every instinct in my body screamed to get out of the truck, to go to her, to demand an explanation. But I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't even cry. I just sat there and watched the life I thought I still had flicker out, quiet and unceremonious, under the dim porch light of someone else's house. And somewhere deep inside, a switch flipped. I realized this wasn't just happening to me. I was letting it happen. Not anymore. It wasn't just some stranger's truck, it was Mark's. Our neighbor. The guy who lived 3 doors down. The guy who lent me his drill when mine burned out.
The guy who waved every morning while watering his front lawn, who asked about my fantasy football lineup, who helped me lift the new grill onto our back deck. The same guy who always seemed to be around when I couldn't be, when work ran late, when I was stuck in meetings, when life pulled me in too many directions and she needed a favor. Mark's coming over to help hang those shelves. Mark said he can fix the leaking faucet. Mark offered to check the gutters while you're out of town. Every time she said it, I thanked him. Every time I told myself it was just neighborly kindness. That's what neighbors do, right? They look out for each other. I never once thought to question it. Never once thought he was doing more than just tightening bolts and patching drywall. Sitting there in the dark, watching him kiss my wife's forehead on the porch of that guest house, I realized what an idiot I'd been. It wasn't kindness. It wasn't favors. It was a slow invasion, one I opened the gates for. I thought about all the nights I worked overtime, trying to set us up for a better future. How many dinners she ate alone. How many movies she watched curled up on the couch by herself. I thought about how many times she must have called him when she should have called me. The gut punch wasn't just that she was cheating, it was that it was with someone who sat at our table, who toasted our anniversary with a beer in his hand, who patted me on the back and said I was lucky to have her. I wondered how long it had been going on. If it started before she asked for space, if maybe space was just the excuse she needed to stop pretending. The more I thought about it, the less it mattered. The truth was, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A series of small, deliberate choices made while I trusted her and him to have my back. Mark wasn't fixing things around our house. He was replacing me piece by piece, while I worked myself numb trying to keep everything together. I didn't move from the truck that night, didn't call her out, didn't go pound on their door, because for the first time in weeks I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't waiting for answers that wouldn't come. I knew exactly what I was dealing with, and I knew exactly what I had to do. Part of me still clung to hope. Hope that maybe I had misunderstood. Hope that maybe this wasn't what it looked like. It's funny how stubborn hope can be, even when reality is standing right in front of you, waving a red flag in your face. I sat there in my truck for what felt like hours, my mind racing through every excuse I could invent. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe Mark was just helping her move a dresser. Maybe they were just talking. Maybe. I told myself it would hurt less if I could just find one shred of innocence in all of it. One reason to believe that my whole life wasn't crumbling right in front of me. But then she pulled him inside, laughed that laugh I hadn't heard in months. Carefree, bright, like the weight of our marriage had finally slid off her shoulders. And I saw it, plain as day, through the front window. She kissed him. Not a quick, awkward kiss you give an old friend, not the kind of kiss you explain away. No, she kissed him the way she used to kiss me, back when we were still something real. Her hands tangled in the back of his shirt, his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. They moved like they knew each other, like this wasn't new, like this had been going on for a long, long time. The curtains shifted slightly, but not enough to hide them, not enough to shield me from the truth anymore. And that was the moment, the exact second, when something inside me finally broke. It wasn't anger that flooded me. It wasn't jealousy. It was something colder. A numb, cutting clarity that stripped away every excuse I had built to protect her, to protect us. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She had simply chosen someone else. And she hadn't even bothered to leave town to do it. I leaned back in the driver's seat, staring up at the dark sky, letting the reality settle deep into my bones. I wasn't going to be the guy banging on her door in the middle of the night, screaming for answers. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction, the satisfaction of thinking she still had that kind of power over me. No, if she had made her choice, then so had I. I started the engine, the rumble cutting through the night. Neither of them even noticed. They were too busy building their new life in the ruins of mine. I pulled away from the curb without a glance back. I didn't need to see anymore. I had seen enough to know the truth, and now it was time to decide what I was going to do about it. The old me would have slammed on the brakes, stormed up to that guest house, demanded answers, demanded apologies, demanded something. But the man sitting behind that wheel wasn't the old me anymore. That version of me had died somewhere between the excuses and the lies. So I drove home instead. Quiet, focused. And when I walked through the front door of the house we used to share, I didn't sit down and wallow. I got to work. First thing, I pulled out every file we had. Mortgage papers, insurance policies, bank account statements, anything with our names on it, anything she could try to take with her when she left for good. I made copies of everything, filed the originals somewhere safe she couldn't reach, opened a separate checking account under my name only, started rerouting my paycheck so she couldn't touch it. Next was the lawyer. A quiet email late that night to a family friend who specialized in divorces. Subject line, urgent, need to protect assets. By sunrise, I had an appointment scheduled. I didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't drink myself into a stupor. I just did what needed to be done. Because if she wanted out, I wasn't going to be the fool who got blindsided when she finally asked for it. I wasn't going to be the man scrambling to keep the house, the savings, the pieces of the life I built while she moved on without a scratch. Every moment I spent organizing papers, sending quiet texts to my lawyer, changing passwords, setting up new accounts. It was like stitching myself back together one thread at a time. It didn't heal the hurt, but it gave me a focus. It gave me a way to stop being the man she left behind and start becoming the man who walked away on his own terms. I even started documenting things. Times she withdrew money from our joint account. Times she showed up too busy to talk. Pictures of her truck outside that guest house at odd hours. I kept it all. Not because I was planning some messy revenge, but because facts matter when people start rewriting the story. And she would. She'd paint herself as the wounded wife who just needed space. She'd say I abandoned her, that I didn't try hard enough. I already knew how the narrative would shift when it suited her, so I wasn't giving her the chance. Not this time. When you love someone, you want to believe they'll come back. You want to believe the promises you made to each other still mean something. But there's a point where you stop hoping and start preparing. And that night, in the empty house that used to be ours, I made a quiet promise to myself. I might not be able to save the marriage, but I was damn sure going to save myself. The next morning, I moved through the house like a man on a mission. No hesitation, no second guessing, just cold, deliberate action. First stop, the bank. I walked into the branch we'd used for years, smiled politely at the teller who recognized me, and sat down with a manager in a glass office overlooking the lobby. Within 30 minutes, I had a new checking account, a savings account, and all direct deposits redirected into them. I didn't close the joint account. Not yet. I wanted her to keep thinking nothing had changed. Let her keep spending, keep moving money, while the real foundation was quietly being pulled out from under her feet. Next came the documents. I dug through the filing cabinet in the study. The one we used to joke made us feel like real adults. Birth certificates, titles, tax returns, insurance papers, the deed to the house. I made copies of everything, took photos of every important document, backed them up to a cloud storage account she didn't know about, and then secured the originals in a locked box at the bank. Anything she could twist, lose, or accidentally misplace was no longer within her reach. It felt cold, mechanical, but necessary. This wasn't about vengeance. This was about survival. After lunch, I sat down with my lawyer. She listened patiently while I laid it all out. The space she needed, the guest house, the neighbor, the truck, the late-night kisses. She didn't look surprised. "You're doing the right thing," she said, sliding a notepad across the table. "Here's everything you'll need if it comes to divorce. Dates, evidence, financial records. Documentation is your best friend right now." It was sobering, sitting in that sterile office, realizing how much of my life was about to be reduced to paperwork and legal filings. But it was also strangely freeing, because the truth was, I had already lost her. The only question left was whether I was going to lose everything else too. I spent the rest of the day moving through our life with a checklist in my head. Close joint credit cards, document all major purchases made in the last 6 months, review insurance policies for beneficiaries, update passwords to everything, email, social media, bank accounts. By nightfall, the house felt different. It looked the same. The pictures on the walls, the furniture, the half-empty closet where her things used to be, but underneath it, everything had shifted. The life we built together was hollow now, propped up by memories that didn't mean anything anymore. I wasn't just protecting my money, or my house, or my credit. I was protecting the future she thought she could walk away from without consequences. She wanted space. She got it. But when she finally tried to come back, when she realized the grass wasn't greener or the thrill wore off, she was going to find a different man waiting for her, not broken, not begging, ready. It was a rainy Thursday when she showed up at the house. No call, no warning, just the sound of her key turning in the lock like nothing had changed, like she still belonged there. I was in the kitchen, nursing a black coffee and going over paperwork when the door swung open. She stood there, dripping wet, makeup smudged, her hair plastered to her face. For a second, she just stared at me, like she wasn't sure if she was supposed to come in. Then she broke. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. "I miss you," she sobbed against my chest. "I miss us." I didn't move, didn't pull her closer, didn't push her away. I just stood there, letting her cry, feeling nothing. A few weeks earlier, her tears would have cracked me open. I would have said all the wrong things, begged, pleaded, promised to do better, even when I wasn't the one who needed to. But not this time. This time, I played along. I rubbed her back in slow, mechanical circles, murmuring, "It's okay. We can figure it out." I let her cry harder, clutching my shirt like a lifeline she wasn't ready to lose. The whole time, I kept my face neutral, my voice steady, because I already knew what this was. This wasn't love. It was fear. Fear that the fantasy she chased wasn't as perfect as she imagined. Fear that the neighbor's promises were hollow. Fear that she had gambled her life away on a man who wasn't me, and lost. She sat at the kitchen table, rambling about how confused she'd been, how lonely she felt, how nothing happened between her and Mark. Not really. Just a connection she mistook for something more. Every word was a half-truth. Every sentence was a carefully crafted plea for forgiveness, without ever admitting what she had actually done. I nodded, said I understood, told her we could take things slow, rebuild from the ground up if that's what she wanted. Inside, I was already moving the chess pieces. She wasn't back because she realized how much she loved me. She was back because her escape plan collapsed, because the safety net she thought she had was full of holes, because she needed a soft landing, and she thought I was still soft enough to catch her. I made her a cup of tea, listened while she spun her story, promised we'd talk more tomorrow. And when she finally went to bed, in the guest room she used to call her yoga space, I stayed up, finishing the last of the paperwork, preparing the final moves. She thought she was coming home to the same man she left behind. She had no idea. He slipped back into the house like it was still hers, left her bag by the door, took over the bathroom sink with her makeup and lotions, claimed her spot on the couch like she hadn't been gone for months, like the late nights, the secret kisses, the betrayal. None of it had happened. Like I was supposed to forget everything I saw through that window. She moved through the house with a nervous kind of cheerfulness, trying to stitch herself back into the life she had ripped apart. Cooking dinner one night, folding laundry another, asking if I wanted to watch something together, her voice trembling just enough to sound innocent. And the worst part? She acted like we could just pick up where we left off, without ever sitting down and telling the truth. Not once did she mention Mark. Not once did she admit that her time to find herself had been spent in someone else's bed. She didn't apologize for lying, she didn't confess. She just swept the mess under the rug and smiled like she could pretend it was clean. I let her. I nodded at her small attempts to play house again. I kissed her forehead when she reached for me. I held her hand when we crossed paths in the hallway, because while she was busy pretending we could rebuild on lies, I was building something real. A clean break, a legal escape, a future without her. Every smile I gave her was another brick in the wall I was putting between us. Every gentle word was another step closer to the day I would walk out and leave her wondering when exactly she lost control of the story. It wasn't easy. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering the woman she used to be. The woman who made pancakes in my old college hoodie. The woman who cried with me the day we put our first dog down. I missed that woman, grieved her, but I knew now she didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never really did. The woman sleeping in the guest room down the hall was a stranger who wore my wife's face. And no matter how many dinners she cooked or how many empty smiles she gave, she couldn't hide the truth from me. You can only lie to someone who wants to believe you. And I didn't want to believe her anymore. I was just waiting for the right moment, the right day, the final move. And it was coming faster than she thought. She went to bed early that night, exhausted from pretending. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, whispered, "I'm so glad we're finding our way back to each other," and padded down the hallway to the guest room. I waited until I heard the door click shut, waited until her breathing grew steady and slow. Then I got up and got to work. There wasn't any rage in it, no screaming, no smashing plates, no Hollywood scene of revenge, just a quiet, methodical rhythm. Piece by piece, memory by memory, I packed her life away. I started in the bathroom. All the lotions and perfumes she had scattered back across the counter like she was reclaiming her territory. One by one, I zipped them into a small toiletry bag and set it by the door. Then the closet, the jeans she liked to steal from my side, the sweatshirt she forgot wasn't hers, the boots she said she bought for long walks together, still brand new, tags dangling. Into the suitcase they went, no hesitation, no second thoughts. I moved to the living room next, her stack of unread books on the end table, the blanket she had to have, but only ever used once, the candles she lit to make the house smell like vanilla and apologies. All of it, gone. I didn't touch the photos on the wall, not yet. Those could wait until morning. But her things, her ghost, they needed to be out before she woke up. Each packed box felt like another knot loosening in my chest. Each item sealed away made breathing a little easier. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. By the time the sun started bleeding through the blinds, everything she had brought back into my house was stacked neatly by the door. 3 boxes, 2 suitcases, one woman's desperate attempt to reclaim a life she didn't deserve anymore. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, waiting for her to wake up. The divorce papers sat beside me, signed, notarized, sealed. All that was left was to hand them to her. All that was left was to watch the look on her face when she realized the us she thought she was coming home to didn't exist anymore. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to explain. I didn't need to hear another excuse tumble from her lips. All I needed to do was open the door, hand her what she had earned, and finally let her go. And when she woke up and stepped into the living room, still half dreaming, still believing in the fantasy she had written in her head, I was ready, more ready than I had ever been in my life. She shuffled into the living room, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, wearing one of my old t-shirts like some kind of badge of belonging. She smiled when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table, like the night before had sealed something back together, like she hadn't spent months tearing it apart. "Morning," she said softly, like we were teenagers in love again. She didn't notice the boxes right away, didn't notice the way I didn't smile back. She crossed the room, leaning down to kiss me. I turned just slightly, enough that her lips brushed my cheek instead of my mouth. She pulled back, confused, her smile faltering. That's when she saw them. The boxes, the suitcases, everything she had brought back into my home, stacked neatly by the door like a shipment ready to be returned to sender. "What's all this?" she asked, voice tight, a flicker of panic flashing across her face. I slid the envelope across the table without a word, her name written on the front in neat black ink. Inside, everything she wasn't brave enough to say, but everything I was strong enough to do. Divorce papers, finalized, filed, irrevocable. She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Then she looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, I saw it hit her. I wasn't the man she thought she could manipulate anymore. "I thought," she started, voice breaking. "I thought we were working on things. I thought—" I stood up slowly, chair scraping back across the floor. "You thought you could move back in, play house, pretend none of it happened," I said. "You thought you could erase the truth because it was inconvenient." Tears welled up in her eyes. Maybe real, maybe just another performance. I didn't care anymore. She opened her mouth to protest, to explain, to spin the story the way she always did. I held up a hand. "No more talking, no more lying. You made your choices. Now you live with them." She reached out like she could still fix it, still grab onto some piece of me that hadn't already walked away. But there was nothing left to grab, nothing left to save. I nodded toward the door. "Everything you brought back is packed. You can take it with you now." She stood there, frozen for a moment, then gathered the boxes with shaking hands, her breath hitching like she was trying not to sob. I didn't help her. I didn't comfort her. I didn't say a single word. When the door finally clicked shut behind her, I sat back down at the table, picked up my coffee, took a long, slow sip, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't taste bitter. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Not even a week after I handed her the divorce papers, the whole fantasy world she built came crashing down around her. I heard about it from the neighbor 2 doors down, the one who always knew everyone's business before the mailman did. Apparently, Mark's wife, Rachel, found out. Not because he confessed, because she caught them in their own backyard on a Wednesday afternoon while their kids were inside doing homework. Rachel wasn't the type to cause a scene, but this time, she made an exception. She tossed all of Mark's clothes onto the front lawn, screamed so loud half the street came outside to watch, called him every name you could think of, and a few I hadn't even heard before. It was ugly. It was public. And it was exactly what they both deserved. By the next morning, Mark's truck was gone from his driveway. By the end of the week, a for sale sign was planted crooked in his front yard. Another broken home, another family shredded by selfishness dressed up as finding yourself. I didn't feel sorry for him, not for 1 second. And as for her, she wasn't doing much better. I heard from mutual friends, the ones who stayed carefully neutral, that she was bouncing between friends' couches, that the new life she traded everything for had fallen apart faster than she could scramble to fix it. Mark wasn't answering her calls. Rachel had filed for divorce and cleaned him out. And now she was alone, exactly the way she had made me feel for all those months. Poetic, really. She burned down everything she touched, and when the flames finally died, there was nobody left standing beside her. Not him, not me, not even the friends who once told her she was brave for choosing happiness. Funny how that works. People love cheering you on when you're destroying your life, right up until there's nothing left for them to admire. I sat on my porch one evening, watching the sunset bleed across the sky, thinking about how different everything felt. The house was quieter now. Lonelier, sure, but lighter too. There was no more waiting for a key to turn in the lock, no more wondering if a text would come, no more trying to make myself smaller, more patient, more understanding for someone who never deserved it. She gambled and lost. Both of them did. And for once, the universe didn't let them walk away without paying the price. I didn't have to raise my voice, didn't have to ruin anyone's life. They ruined their own. All I had to do was stand still and let the truth do the work. And it did. Better than I could have ever planned. The house didn't feel like home anymore. Not after everything that happened inside those walls. Every room felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by memories I didn't want to carry around anymore. The laughter in the kitchen that didn't belong to me. The whispered phone calls behind closed doors. The cold, empty spaces she left behind when she decided I wasn't enough. So I made the decision. No more clinging to ashes. No more living inside the wreckage. I called a real estate agent the next morning. Had the house listed by the end of the week. Packing up was easier than I thought it would be. Most of the stuff wasn't worth keeping. Furniture we bought when we thought we had forever. Pictures I couldn't look at without feeling like a fool. I donated most of it. Sold some. Left the rest on the curb. The only things I took with me fit into the back of my truck. A few clothes, my grandfather's old watch, a battered photo of my dad shaking my hand at my army graduation, and a guitar I hadn't touched in years. I handed over the keys to a young couple with stars in their eyes and dreams bigger than their mortgage. I hoped the house would be kinder to them than it was to me. Then I quit my job. It was a good job. Steady paycheck. Benefits. But it tied me to the same streets, the same people, the same painful reminders. And I wasn't the same man who walked into that office every morning anymore. I needed more than a new house. I needed a new life. So I packed what little I had left and drove. No GPS, no plan. Just west, toward the mountains, toward something bigger than the small world that had collapsed around me. I found a town no one had ever heard of. Population, a few hundred. One diner, one gas station, no chain stores in sight. I rented a cabin on the edge of town. Small, simple, surrounded by trees so thick you could scream and no one would hear you. It was perfect. The first night there, I stood outside under a sky so full of stars it barely seemed real. No traffic noise, no flicker of a neighbor's TV through the window. No past waiting to ambush me when I turned a corner. Just silence. Real silence. The kind you only find after losing everything you thought mattered. I wasn't running away. I was finally running towards something. Even if I didn't know exactly what it was yet. All I knew was that nobody here knew my name. Nobody looked at me like I was broken. Nobody expected anything from me except to show up, breathe, and try again. And for the first time in a long, long time, that felt like enough. The first few weeks in the new town passed in a blur of small, quiet moments. Early mornings sipping coffee on the porch while the mist lifted off the trees. Long walks with no destination, just the sound of gravel crunching under my boots. Evenings spent with a battered notebook, scribbling thoughts I never said out loud. At first, the silence felt like punishment, a reminder of what I lost, the kind of silence that made you question everything about yourself. But slowly, it started to feel different, not empty, not lonely, free. Nobody here knew my history. Nobody knew what my wife had done. Nobody cared about the messy end to a story I used to think would last forever, and the longer I stayed, the less I cared too. I stopped wondering if she ever thought about me, stopped wondering if she regretted anything, stopped replaying the nights I waited by the phone or the days I made excuses for her. She had made her choices, and now, so had I. I realized something out there, under those wide open skies. Letting go isn't giving up. It isn't weakness. It's survival. It's saying, I don't have to carry this anymore. It's refusing to let someone else's betrayal define the rest of your life. It's the quiet kind of winning, the kind where you don't need applause or revenge or even an apology. You just move on. You live better. You live for yourself. One afternoon, sitting in the diner sipping black coffee, a woman about my age slid into the seat across from me. Worn jeans, bright eyes, a laugh that didn't sound like it had anything to prove. "You're new around here," she said, smiling. "Yeah," I said, "just finding my way." She stuck out her hand. "Welcome to nowhere," she said. "You're gonna like it." And maybe for the first time in what felt like years, I believed it. I shook her hand, smiled back, and realized I wasn't stuck anymore. I wasn't the man waiting for someone to come home. I wasn't the man begging for answers that wouldn't fix anything. I was just a man, free, standing on his own 2 feet, building something real, something solid, one quiet day at a time. Sometimes you don't get the apology you deserve. Sometimes you don't get closure wrapped in a neat bow. Sometimes all you get is the chance to start again. And that's more than enough. It always was.